The Devouring Mother. Top 3 photos with disturbing backstories.
Today, I'm going to share with you 3 progressively more horrifying true stories, and at the end of each of them, I'm going to share with you the picture that is famous.
Lana, the Bloodthirster.
In 1909, Lana Constantinescu was a 27-year-old woman living in the Romanian city of Timișoara. Lana was a devout practitioner of Zoroastrianism, which is one of the world's oldest organized religions that began in ancient Persia and is now practiced primarily in East Asia. In the city that Lana was living in, it was majority Christian, and they looked at Zoroastrians as witches. As such, Lana was persecuted and ostracized primarily by these 2 Christian ministers that spread a rumor that she was drinking the blood of local children and that she worshipped Satan. That rumor would spread and grow to the point where everybody knew Lana as like the singular witch of all the Zoroastrians in the city, and it ultimately incited this angry Christian mob to storm her house on October 21st, 1909, and rip her into the streets and savagely beat her to within an inch of her life. She would survive this lynching, and she would be taken to a hospital where she'd be treated for severe blunt force injuries and lacerations. But after 2 days of being in the hospital, when she had not made a full recovery at all, she checked herself out and headed home. The next day, Lana was found dead in her apartment, and her family and friends initially believed that she had died as a result of the injuries she had sustained from the angry mob, and that perhaps she had checked herself out of the hospital too soon, and untreated, that's why she must have passed away early. But when the authorities arrived at her house and began looking at the scene, it did not look like she had died as a result of those injuries. It looked more like some sort of ritual suicide. She was laying on this sofa with her arms over her chest. Next to the sofa was an altar that was adorned with strange occult symbols and ritual herbs and effigies. And on the altar was this goblet with deep, dark red stains on the inside. When they looked at Lana, even though she was fully dressed, underneath her sleeves were all these cuts on her arms, and there were cuts on her legs as well. After her autopsy, the medical examiner said she had died from a combination of blood loss and internal shock from ingesting massive quantities of blood that triggered cardiac arrest. Lana had been draining her own blood into the sacramental goblet, drinking it, and then doing it over and over again until she died. Locals believed that that was not just a ritual suicide, but rather she was placing a curse on her enemies. Almost immediately following her death, those 2 Christian ministers that had spread those rumors about her that led to the mob coming and attacking her, they both died of an extremely rare blood-borne illness. And then immediately following their demise, the 2 primary vigilantes that actually organized that mob that would attack Lana, they both died. One was hit by a falling tree and another died in a fire. And according to more recent accounts, Lana's curse didn't end with the death of her tormentors. There have been dozens of reports of people after seeing this image, which is of Lana after she was discovered by authorities in her home, that they will have bouts of extreme sleep paralysis.
You fucking dickhead! I don't want to see it no more. Bro, so you just said everyone that's seen that image gets sleep paralysis. And you just showed it to us. Great. 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 Cheers, bro. Listen, I sleep like a baby, chat. I'm the easiest person to sleep. I get to sleep in literally 30 seconds. Izzy hates me for it, yeah? If I struggle sleeping tonight, chat, I'm going to come on stream tomorrow and tell you. And then we're all going to sue fucking Borland for showing me the picture, bro. Hey, Borland, buddy. I better not get sleep paralysis tonight, my guy.
Reports of people after seeing this image, which is of Lana after she was discovered by authorities in her home, that they will have bouts of extreme sleep paralysis. These are people that have never had sleep paralysis before, that this picture somehow induces sleep paralysis in them, like they're cursed by Lana. And so now that you've seen this image, you're cursed too. So
why are you smirking for? Why are you smirking for? You dickhead.
You're welcome.
Dickhead. No, chat, I'm pissed. Chat, I'm pissed. How is he just fucked us up like this? How is he just fucking cursed us in his video? How's his cousin? Bro, you all have sleep paralysis as well now. Like, we're all fucked. There's a chat. If we listen, we're gonna come back to the stream tomorrow. If we've all had a rough night tonight, we'll all form together and sue him. We'll sue him. 25 years later.
In 1876, Blanche Monnier was a beautiful 25-year-old from a very wealthy, prominent family in Paris who desperately wanted to find a husband and move out of her mother's home and start her own life. The man she would fall in love with was not a young, rich aristocrat like her family was hoping, but instead was an older, poor lawyer. Her mother told her that she needed to break off this relationship and find a more suitable suitor. But Blanche refused and said she was in love with this man. When her mother outright forbid her from seeing this man ever again, she refused and began sneaking out at night to spend time with this guy and was away from the home quite a bit, just kind of escaping her mom. But during this tumultuous time where Blanche is very much at odds with her mother, Blanche would unexpectedly die. And since this is the late 1800s, people did that at a young age. They just unexpectedly died. And so her lover and her family and society mourned her loss, but ultimately time went on and people moved on. 25 years later, in 1901, French police received this strange handwritten letter that just basically states that the Monnier family has a very dirty secret and you should go check their estate out. Now, the Monnier family was in excellent standing in Paris. I mean, they were one of the more prominent families. The mother, she was known for her charitable works. They were just one of those families that everybody knew, including certainly the French police. And so when they got this letter, they weren't actually that concerned that there was any truth to this letter, but they felt like it was their duty to at least go knock on the Monnier family's door, show them the letter, and then just take a look around. And so they did that. They showed up. They showed the Monnier family, including her mother, who was at the door, hey, we have this letter. Would you mind if we looked around? The Monnier family was very cooperative. They let them walk around their whole big estate, and the police didn't find anything. As they're chatting in the doorway, getting ready to leave, because this is all just a big misunderstanding, one of the officers turns and looks up a little flight of stairs that they hadn't gone up and notices a small door that's been padlocked shut, and it's the only door at the end of this one stairwell. And he says off the cuff to the family, well, what's in that door up there? And Blanche's mother says, oh, that's a supply closet. You know, our assistants come in and they'll go in there and use that. And the French police officers say, well, would you mind if we just poked our heads in? It's the only space we haven't checked. And since we're already here, we'll just check that box. We'll go in there and poke our heads in. At this point, the Monnier family says, no, we're not going to let you go in there because you don't need to. It's just a supply closet. Now the police say, you're going to go ahead and open up that door. At which point the family says, no, we're not. So one of the officers tells the family to stay right here, while the other officer goes up the stairs to try to break open this lock and see what's in there. As soon as he's right outside the door, he's hit with this overwhelmingly disgusting smell. It smells like rotting flesh. It smells like death. He covers his mouth and he breaks open the lock and he opens the door, and there in the middle of this dark, disgusting smelling room on a rotting straw mattress is none other than Blanche Monnier. 25 years later, she is alive. She barely weighs 55 pounds and she's chained to a bed. She has not come out of those chains or moved off of that bed in 25 years. The smell was so bad they could barely be in there for longer than a few minutes at a time. But one of the officers immediately goes over and knocks down some of the wood that was blocking up
Hey, Peaches, appreciate the sub, Peaches!
The windows, and sunlight pours into the room, and it's the first time Blanche Monnier is seeing sunlight in 25 years. The reason she had been imprisoned in this room is because 25 years earlier, when she was fighting with her mother about not seeing this poor commoner, and she wasn't willing to break off the relationship with him, her mother told her to go in this room and said, you can't come out until you tell me you're going to break it off with this guy. She was so in love with him that she said no, and her mother wouldn't let her leave. And then,
yo, you should have said, okay, I'm no longer in love, like a day later, and then run away. You should have said, I'm not in love, and then run away. Damn, that's crazy, bro. How can you do that?
days turned into months, turned into years, turned into decades. And here we are, 25 years later, and she had never left that room.
Wow.
The mother and the brother of Blanche Monnier were arrested, and the public found out about this. And it incited a huge mob that went to their house. And it actually caused Blanche Monnier's mother to have a heart attack, and she would end up dying only a couple of days later. And so she never had to serve any jail time or really answer to any of her crimes.
No, to be fair, she actually deserved jail. Jail's better. She actually should have got jail instead.
And the brother was complicit in what was happening to Blanche Monnier, but he kind of weaseled his way out of it. As for Blanche Monnier, she was remarkably lucid when she came out of that room, and she commented on how lovely it was to breathe fresh air and to be in sunlight. She was brought to a hospital where she did make a recovery, but she was so screwed up from being in that room that she didn't really know how to function in society anymore. And so she was moved to a mental institution, and unfortunately she died about 10 years later.
Wow. Bro, that's horrible, man.
On October 13th, 1972, Uruguayan Flight 571 was flying from Uruguay to Chile for a rugby game. On board were 45 people. There was 5 pilots and crew. The other 40 were the rugby team and their friends and relatives. So they take off and they're making their way to Chile, and the pilot was relatively inexperienced, and he made a fatal mistake. He believed it was time to make their descent into Chile, but he was actually about 70 kilometers early. So as he's descending through the clouds, he believes he's going to see a runway and land this plane. Instead, he sees the Andes Mountains, and it's too late to pull up out of the way. He basically nicked the mountain, causing the plane to start tumbling down at breakneck speeds, 350 kilometers per hour. As it's tumbling down the mountain, the tail breaks off and 7 people are sucked out immediately. They all perish. It's blazing down this mountain, and then it comes to a crashing stop where on impact it kills the 2 pilots. But miraculously, of the 45 people on board, 33 were still alive when all the dust settled. But that night, 5 more people would perish from the freezing.
So pretty much, chat, if you go on a plane and you're scared of it crashing like I am, don't be at the tail. Don't be the pilots. Be in the middle. Okay? Okay? So middle's best bet.
Temperatures, and within a couple days of this crash landing, another person would die. Those who were still alive that weren't in a coma or critically injured used luggage and debris from the plane and seats to create shelter. And they actually started pulling out lipstick from inside of some of the passengers' luggage, and they tried to write SOS on the outside of
Yo, chat, low-key, like, I don't want to be in this situation, but I'd find it fun trying to see if I could survive. Does that make sense? Like, I wouldn't want to be in this situation, but I want to be in a situation once in my life where, like, I want to see if I could survive. Like an apocalypse or zombie outbreak or nuclear war or, you know, like, I don't know, something like survival, you know what I mean? Like the games, right? I'm a gamer sometimes.
The plane, because the fuselage was still pretty clearly intact.
I want to test myself,
but they didn't have enough lipstick. They didn't have any medical supplies, and they didn't have proper clothing for the temperatures they were in. They did not anticipate being in minus 30 degrees Celsius temperatures for extended periods of time. You know. They also had very, very little food, and it was running out very quickly. In a very cruel twist of fate, they actually found a working radio that allowed them to tune in and listen to the media as they tried to find them. And so they had to listen in horror after about a week when the search was called off because no one...
Do you know how to make food and clean water? Yes, Marilyn. If you heard in the story, there's 33 people that landed, okay? That's 32 other food sources, right? Worst case scenario, don't think I'm a weirdo, right? That's backup. That is backup, okay? I'm just thinking smart. That's backup. But obviously, I'm going to go out looking for food, right?
No one knew where they were, and the assumption was they must have all died in the crash. When the food finally ran out, survivors began eating the seats inside the plane, the leather and the cotton. But as they're doing this, they know what the next step has to be if they're going to survive.
The seats.
They need to eat the dead. And so on day 9 of the ordeal, the survivors ate the pilots.
Oh, wait, no. Hey, these guys are stupid, bro. Yo, when it's life or death, chat, bro, you can't let the pilots rot too much. You're going to have to eat them first. and save your food. Like, bro, you're in a survival. Like, it's life or death right now. You gotta think smart. You gotta save your food. They're frozen. Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah. They are frozen. Okay, yeah. Never mind. You could save it for last. Yeah.
And they chose the pilots because they were the only people amongst the dead that they didn't personally know. The rest of the dead that they would ultimately eat were their friends and loved ones.
Oh shit, that's
now,
fucked.
Naturally, these people did not want to become cannibals, but virtually everyone, out of a need to survive, was able to make the adjustment. There were some people that couldn't, including one woman who didn't eat and ultimately died of starvation on day 60 because she just was not prepared.
Day what? 60? Hey. Sacred, that's fucked, bro. Old lady, and you're saying another food source.
To do what was necessary to survive. As if this situation wasn't bad enough, an avalanche would eventually strike the landing site, killing 8 more of these people that are doing everything they can to
Sacred,
survive.
don't say it.
But at the time of the avalanche, their food source had effectively run out. And so those 8 people who perished in the avalanche ultimately replenished their food source. From day one, the survivors discussed climbing up and over the mountains and walking towards Chile to try to search for help. But the attempts so far had all failed due to extreme cold, malnutrition, altitude sickness. It was like they knew as soon as they walked over that mountain, they were going to die. And so many of them decided early on that they would rather just stay with the group because at least that way they would die as a group, or maybe by some stroke of luck they could still be discovered and they might be easier to discover as a big group.
Yo, chat, I ain't gonna lie. I'm surprised they didn't start killing each other yet. You know what I mean? Like, it's survival of the fittest right now. Life or death. I'm surprised they ain't killing each other yet.
But 2 months after the crash, and with no help in sight, they know the search has been called off. 2 of the survivors basically say, screw it. I'm gonna make the trek over the Andes Mountains. We have no supplies, we have nothing, no map, no compass, no anything. We're just gonna walk roughly in the direction of Chile, and you know what? We're either gonna die here or we're gonna die out there. And so the 2 take off. They somehow survived for 9 days, walking over the Andes Mountains with no equipment. They've been out for 60 plus days at this point.
Yo, what are they doing for drink? Like, I'm not hearing that. Are they even drinking anything?
And they manage to walk into this valley, and they see that there are people living in this valley. There's actually a couple of fishermen right on the other side of this river. And so they go down to the edge of the river and they're yelling out to these people on the other side. The fishermen could...
Wait, can you survive on snow then? Melted snow? Oh, they're chilling then. They'll survive forever then. They've got unlimited water source. They still need food.
Couldn't make out what they were saying, and so the fishermen, they got a piece of paper and they put a pencil. Fishermen couldn't make... They go down to the edge of the river and they're yelling out to these people on the other side. The fishermen couldn't make out what they were saying, and so the fishermen, they got a piece of paper and they put a pencil in it and balled it up with a rock and threw it across the river. And they were able to write down that they had survived a plane crash. They were located back in that direction. There was 14 other survivors and they desperately needed help. Balled it up, threw it back. 3 Chilean helicopters were spun up and sent off in their direction, and the 14 other survivors were able to be picked up, brought to safety, and all 16 would make a full physical recovery. However, the most difficult thing they would ever have to recover from was becoming reluctant cannibals, which is something that haunts all of them to this day. And here is the famous final picture of inside Uruguayan Flight 571 just moments before they crashed into the Andes Mountain and had to go through that horrific 72-day ordeal. So that's going to do it, guys.
Bro, that just sound like a nightmare.